Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Waste Avoidance and Resource Recovery Advisory Committee meeting. Just starting on here. So, as presiding member of the Waste Avoidance and Resource Recovery Advisory Committee, and in accordance with Clause 9.6 of the City of Wanneroo Standing Orders, Local Law 2021, I declare that all provisions of the Standing Orders will apply to the conduct of this meeting. I now declare the Waste Avoidance and Resource Recovery Committee meeting open at 6 p.m. Good evening, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting today is being held on Wajak Noongar Budja, and I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I thank all past and present members of the community that have supported the city to better understand and value Noongar culture within the City of Wanneroo. Please note that the audio-visual proceedings of tonight's meeting will be live broadcast online, with the exception of matters discussed behind closed doors. The broadcast of the proceedings of the meeting can be accessed live and on demand through the City of Wanneroo YouTube channel. Item 1, attendances as per the record. Item 2, apologies and leave of absence. I have the CEO, Mr Parker, as an apology tonight. And the Director of Assets, Mr Singh, is also an apology. And I will note for the...
Sorry, Chair.
Yes, Councillor Berry?
Councillor Bedworth's just pulled in the car park. Okay,
beautiful. And Councillor Bedworth will be here in a couple of minutes. Item 3, confirmation of minutes, that the minutes of the Waste Avoidance and Resource Recovery Advisory Committee meeting held on the 11th of May be confirmed. Could I have a mover and seconder for that? Councillor Berry is moving and Deputy Mayor Miles is seconding. Tonight will be a show of hands, everyone, if we can keep them up for those that support the adoption of the minutes. That is carried unanimously. Item 4, reports. If there's any declarations of interest by committee members, please let the committee be aware of those. Item 4, quarterly operations report. Before we go to a mover and seconder, I will go to Kylie or John? Oh, Corinne, sorry. I'll hand that over to you.
Sorry, we're a bit unprepared for this with Harminda having to attend some urgent business. We just requested that we could present this group with our update in relation to our digitisation project. I know it wasn't on the agenda, I apologise for that. Corinne is the lead of that project, and we just have a quick presentation for you guys to give you an update of where we are at the moment, to answer questions, preferably at the end of that presentation. Thank you.
Over to you. Corinne, if you can just pop your microphone on, that would be great. Just the button on the right. Thank you.
Can you hear me well? Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Karine Cado. I'm the project manager working on digitization for waste services. I'd like to present all the challenges and initiatives and projects that we are working on. Just to give you all a bit of background about the current challenge that we are facing in waste services. We rely today on a paper-based process, manual efforts. We have a bit of disconnected system that is not fully integrated to each other, and this brings a lot of challenges for us. Talking about a paper-based and manual process, we have weekly printed run sheets for the drivers to go out and to check where they need to go to perform some services. And as you can imagine, some data quality issues as well, because we rely on a paper form, invoice, we rely on data entry to fill the system, and is subject to errors sometimes. In regarding multiple systems, we have one system for CRMs, another system for maps, another system for properties, and it's really hard to get the information to have the big picture when you need to check different sources all the time. That brings some challenges for reporting. Reporting is something that we need to do on a weekly basis, monthly basis sometimes, and having that information in different source and paper-based is really a challenge. On the top of everything that I just mentioned, we have the population growth. That is a kind of good and not so good problem because it brings some stress for our operations. And what we are doing about that. At the moment, to solve that problem and improve our processes, we have two main projects. One is called centralized reporting. It's basically a Power BI dashboard that centralizes all the data for waste services. The second big project is the waste management system. We are looking to bring to our business a platform that will help us not for our work streams, to help with general waste collection, recycling, bulk collection, and so on. It's a big project. And to support those two projects, we have the data cleanup, data cleansing, and some improvements that we are doing. Not only for the daily basis, this is also important, but also to make sure when we have the new system on board, we have a good quality data to do the upload and make sure we are in a good shape for the future. I will deep dive a bit more in regard to the centralized reporting. The central, as I mentioned, is the Power BI. So you can see the picture on the top of the slide. This is the the general waste collection, recycling in the middle, and garden organics on the bottom of the slide. It's just to create a big picture of what we are doing. Having that information in the dashboard is easy for any manager, supervisors, or anyone actually that has access to the Power BI to slice the data and have some insights. I can see clearly, for instance, what is the busiest day of the week if I pick the filter, weekly filter, and so on. And we can have better decisions. If we know that the busiest day of the week is Wednesday, we can balance, put more resource and staff. And if the less busiest day is Friday, we can reduce it to some balance. So this kind of insights and dashboard that we need to support our operations. In terms of timelines, the centralized reporting, we are 44% progress. We started in November, December with the planning. We moved to a CRM dashboard. I don't have enough time to show, but we do have a CRM dashboard. We created the general waste, recycling, and garden organics. That was the picture that was showing before. At the moment, we are moving to bulk collection. The plan is to do the city services, is all the public bins and also facilities that we have in the city. Wangara facility in November, and in December, we should finalize and have the big pictures of waste services in just one place. So this is the plan for the centralized reporting. Okay? The second project that I just mentioned before is the waste management system. This is a big project and has so many layers. We need some tools to support our operation as we are growing. We need a platform to support the end-to-end. When I mean end-to-end, for instance, when the waste operator go out, we need to know where he's going, how many bins are planned to be picked up, how many bins was collected through the day. We need the data in real time or as minimum periodicity as possible to be able to make some decisions. And also improve operational efficiency, visibility, and better customer experience. Just to give you guys an example, if you have a missed bin situation, if a resident calls saying a bin was missed, at the moment we have no tools to check if it was the operator that missed that service or the resident didn't put the bin out. But in the future, with the system, we are going to have that. So it will be very beneficial not only for the operation, but also for the resident, for waste education, and so on. As I mentioned before, this is a long project. We just finished the initiation of the project at the beginning of the slide. We are in the RFT preparation. We plan to launch the RFT at the beginning of August, moving to evaluation and selection of the system and the vendor that should last should take place between July and December. We need to make sure we cover all the aspects, all the requirements, and make sure we are bringing to the city a very good platform for the future. And then we move to the planning. For hardware implementation, we might need to purchase additional hardware and do some systems configuration. With the vendor on board, we are going to do the planning in more details, but we estimate that the go live will be done between January and April 28. We are planning also the support, hypercare for a period of time, probably between 1 or 2 and 3 months. This needs to be decided with the vendor we select, and should be able to close out the project in August, September 28. It's a long journey, but we are on track with 24% at the moment. Just to finalize, I just want to mention we are doing a lot of work in regarding the data cleansing and improvements. We have done some road data cleanup, reducing paperwork. We identified some process that were paper-based, is no longer paper-based. We are using the workflow to assign one task for one team to another. Was a big win for our area. We also removed some outdated data in the system, was creating some confusion for our team. We identified that it's no longer valid, so we hide those information. It's cleaner and simpler as possible. As I mentioned, data accuracy, increasing the accuracy. And just to finalize, I'd just like to mention that without the collaboration between our business area, this could not be done. We have a big support from business system and IT to support us in that journey. That's all. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, myself, and I have Claire, Amber, and John to be able to respond.
Awesome. Thank you for that presentation. Is there any questions from committee members on the presentation? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. My only question would be is, I guess, the rollout time being so long when we don't really have that many sort of vehicles on that to put the equipment into. So is there a purpose for the timeline taking some 18 months?
Can you hear me? Yes. We need to make sure we cover all the requirements for the project, and we have a list of functional and non-functional requirements and make sure that we cover everything. For the RFT, we are also make sure we put some considerations. As you just mentioned, we have some trucks, but in the future, as the project is so long, we might change the fleet. But we are also put that in consideration for the vendors, and that we'll be aware of that. This is why the project is long, because we need to make sure we cover everything. Would you like to add something?
Deputy Mayor, any further questions?
Yeah, I understand as a project manager you want to make sure that the project, the software or the group that you're using to start, you've obviously been working with them for some time to make sure you've got the right piece of software to operate with. And while you've been doing that, I'm assuming you would have also been testing the right hardware for the teams to be using, whether it be in-house or mobile. If you've got all of that sort of locked away, I'm still wondering why you want to squeeze it out so long. Yes, we will have new trucks, but probably not all of them straight away. So, or is the idea to roll it out over a long period to meet with the demand of new trucks?
I've got Amber who's wanting to respond.
Thank you, through the chair. Councillor Miles, so this timeline, this timeline is potentially conservative at this stage because we haven't actually engaged a vendor yet. So that's the stage that we're at the moment in terms of procuring. So we're about to go out to market by the end of July, start of August. So once we do finalise that procurement, we will have a much better indication of timeline and implementation. It is potentially we will have the option to do a staged implementation. This particular timeline takes into account, a sort of a big bang approach, so that we would do all the system set up and everything that needs to happen, and then go forth with everything. But it may be that a staged approach is a better approach, and in that case, we would be able to start implementation sooner. It still may be full implementation may take the 18 months, but we may be able to start sooner depending on the vendor's implementation plan.
Councillor Seif.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. Is the city aiming to have almost real-time data with this with the new system? Yep. A nod is fine, but for the people at home, maybe just.
Yes, this is the goal, to have the more fresh data as possible.
Yeah.
As I just mentioned, we want to track where the truck is.
Yeah.
So accuracy is important to us.
Yeah.
So this is the end goal for sure.
Yeah. And in your, I understand the 18 months. In the discovery phase, the very initial phase, are we talking to the people at the coalface? Are we talking to the people who are actually physically collecting the rubbish off the verges and driving the trucks and making the bookings? I just want to make sure it's not a management down approach, that it's a bottom up approach. For want of a better word than bottom, of course.
But Mr. Gould.
I guess sort of to answer your question there through the chair, we learnt a lot from our bulk implementation. It's quite a large project. I think that was almost a 2-year implementation phase. Some of the learnings from that, I think we are implementing back into this. That was actually delivered quite well with the operational staff together. Sometimes we find that, the operational staff, they're great at their job. They're there, they're picking up the bins day to day. They would like to know how to make their job easier. Modernly, I get in my car, I punch in Waze and I go, I need to go to this place. It tells me the time, how long it's going to take me to get there. These modern systems, really what they do is they go, here's all the properties, here's all the bins. They're generally colour-coded for if they are been picked up, if they haven't been picked up, or if they've been missed. And the operator generally puts in something if a bin can't be picked up for weight or it's not out or whatever. What these systems do is it presents a map that shows red, amber and green lights, for better of the term. We will engage with our operations crew to ensure that they understand what we're trying to achieve and what we're trying to accomplish. In relation to this particular project at this minute, I guess what's being said is previous historical data is apportionately there, but needed a lot of work. We're at a tendering phase now where we go out to market and say, who can provide this specific type of service for us, and then we start with the engagement process in relation to the operational staff. Say, this is what we've selected, this is what it would look like, this is how it would work for the city and for the operators on site, and then how do we actually ensure that they're trained to an adequate level to ensure that they can utilise the system. I guess that's the best answer I have in relation to that for you.
Yep, Councillor Seif.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying. So you're saying that you've put a request for tender out, or you'll put a request for tender out, and once you've made, so I understand the decision being, the decision to change the system can be a management decision, but then the functionality of the system, the people at the coalface need to be included so that as part of a change management, so that they feel a part of the journey, so that they're engaged, so that when the system comes to being implemented, they feel a part of it and they own it, I guess was what I was trying to get at. So after we do the EFT and management select a solution, then we're going to do the discovery phase at the coalface, and the information, so the functionality will be, the information that we need will be captured from the people at the coalface after the EFT.
Yep, Mr. Galt.
Thank you, through the Chair. That would be the normal process in relation to that, yes. Yeah, very much so. Again, our system's only as good as the people that are utilising it. So failure in most systems that I've seen from a waste perspective, or generally in a local government perspective, are because people are ill-trained, or that we haven't really purchased a system that does what we are requiring it to do, and then poor training after that. Excuse me. I think, again, early in my time here, when we were starting the bulk process, the feedback was very consistent and the involvement was very consistent with our operational staff. I couldn't tell you the numbers exactly how often we engaged with them, but I get the feeling it was almost weekly where we would be going through this system with them. We're committed to ensuring that our operators can utilise this system. It gathers the right data that we need for us to do our job well and for them to do their job well. I know there's frustrations at the moment with operators I've spoken to around paper sheets. We're still doing a very old style of waste management, and I think they're quite keen on modernising that and making it easier for themselves.
Councillor Seif.
In the software world, we call that garbage in, garbage out. Pardon the pun.
Thank you, Councillor Seif. Any further questions from the committee? None indicated. Thank you for the presentation. Alrighty, so we will continue through item 4.1. Was there any general questions on item 4.1? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Thank you, Chair. Just to go to the attachments, attachment 1, I just wanted to understand where it's got on the top chart. We have quite an increase in CRMs for waste services. What are they particularly referring to?
I will defer to Mr. Gould.
Thank you, through the Chair. We record the number of CRMs we receive at Waste Services for whatever waste-related matter that we may get on a daily basis. That would just suggest that there's been 950 more inquiries this quarter as opposed to last quarter. If there's a better way that you'd like that information presented, we're more than happy to, for ease of understanding, I guess, where waste is, and we put it in front of people like they understand that.
Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, if I sort of refer to the curb pipe waste operations bin not collected one, there's obviously quite a big uptake on not collecting compared with June and May and April. Obviously that's probably part of the serum. Have we got an indication on why that is the fact?
Mr. Gould?
Thank you, through the chair, for the question as well. Look, I guess when we say up, in a quarter, just to put this into some perspective, 1,283 missed collections, which include late bins being put out late, which is a bit outside of our operational control, or half-empty bins, so bins that we get a call back where the arm has not necessarily functioned the matter. Again, that tends to be an overweight issue. Overweight issues itself, if it's actually physically missed, which is a control that we can manage with our operations group, and if it's obstructed. So if a handyman's parked in the way of it, we can't physically pick it up, we can't get to the actual bin. That includes that 1,283 figure. That's in general waste alone. So if we take that into account, that generally every month we pick up about 344,000 bins, and we're looking at every month we pick up 3,444 bins. A missing rate of 1,283 is relatively small. We can run the numbers if that makes it any easier. There are general considerations around what missed bin rate should and shouldn't be, but I'd be worried to give you that information where we're including so many different types of missed bins. They're not missed bins. Part of the digitisation project will actually also help us understand which are missed bins or which are obstructed or which ones are overweight. One of the reasons we work so hard towards getting that part of this project up and running is because, operators have come back to us and said, we don't miss that many bins. And we're like, we agree, hence we have this including these other items. Our current system just doesn't break that down well enough for us, and without a major change to something we're already working change through, it makes it difficult for us to present that. We could do some generalised figures, but they'd be best estimates on actual physical missed bins if that's the information you're really looking for. It'd be a best estimate though.
Yep, Deputy Mayor.
And just finally, just on the waste services, the new bin requests, obviously April, May, June, substantially more. Some, the way I read that is about 12 to, it says 2,100 bins, but I'm assuming that it takes in not just the red bin, but also the yellow and the green. Would that be correct? So that's new homes. That's what I'm understanding from that. Would that be right?
Kylie?
Yes, so each request is the set of bins. So that's each individual new home, and we would deliver multiple bins per CRM.
Councillor Bedworth?
Thank you, Chair, through yourself. I've just got two, possibly one actually. It seems like they may well be interlinked, but I'm just looking at the graph / line chart on, bear with me, attachment 4.1. Can't see the page here, forgive me. In respect of illegal dumping and verge litter, it may tie in with the upgraded surveillance on DBCA land, but for my own interest, I noticed that there's been quite a downturn in reports of illegal dumping and verge litter. Is that as a result of the increased signage and AMPR deployments, or is there any other reason that that seems to be going downward?
Mr. Gould?
Thank you for the question through the chair. There are various numbers of reasons for illegal dumping to go up and or down. Some of those are seasonal, can be very seasonal. Some of those are prices to or costings to get rid of waste. Like one of the things we found mainly, particularly my time in a previous local government, was as we adjusted the price of waste coming in through a transfer station or whatnot, if it was too expensive, it didn't always come through. If it was easy to dispose of, yeah, it wouldn't come through. I guess it's a risk-based thing for most people. Most people generally would like to think are trying to do the right thing and wouldn't do that. But when things become cost prohibitive, we find in waste services that people will take that chance sometimes. In relation to this, again, our waste service team consistently through our operational group do spend a lot of time working with DBCA and saying, hey, here are our problematic areas, here are our hotspots. We do get a number of reports fairly consistently over the months. in relation to illegal dumping in certain areas, and we try direct DCBA to direct. We work with DCBA to sort of focus on some of those areas where we can.
I'll go to Councillor Berry and then the Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. My questions all relate to page 3. My first one is also in regard to illegal dumping, and it's relation to paragraph 2, where it says existing signage will progressively be retrofitted as part of the stage implementation. How will it be measured to know if the signage is actually having a positive impact? Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
Very difficult to measure. Very, very difficult to measure. I guess we undertake this as more of a proactive approach and go, if people are aware that these things aren't the right things to do and they have other options, they will undertake that. Again, I can't give you a measuring tool in relation to that. We think it's a good thing to be doing from an operational perspective. And again, with the variation of our illegal dumping, it may or may not be having effect. But when it comes to illegal dumping, I think it really comes back down to give everything a go, a red hot go, because the less you have out there, the better.
Councillor Berry.
Thanks. My second question relates to the EPC, and it's made clear in the report that obviously we're going to then try and sell the EPS blocks. How much is this equipment costing us to actually, it says it's been awarded on a contract, so is it our equipment, is it someone else's, and how long will it take to get to cost recovery from when we produce the EPC, well, with the EPC produce the EPS blocks and then they're sold? Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
Thank you through the Chair. I will take that one on notice so I can give you a comprehensive response.
Councillor Berry.
And my last question relates to the City of Joondalup, where we've just obviously, it's got an agreement is scheduled to commence on the 1st of July. How long is the agreement for? And with the City of Joondalup also now going to be using the Wanneroo Waste Transfer Station, will it cope into the future with the growth of East Wanneroo and Carabooda when all those subdivisions and extra houses come online? Thank you.
Mr. Gould.
Thank you for the question. So the Wanneroo transfer station has been designed up to the next 5 years to take our capacity and, if needed, some additional capacity in there. How much exactly? I think at the moment it's at 100,000 tonnes, but a facility like that, if you wish to take more tonnage, it all mainly comes back down to increasing manpower, so additional shifts, additional trucks. Is it possible for us to take Joondalup's waste? Yes, we originally designed the facility, but the facility after 5 years is not going to take that kind of capacity. It won't actually take our capacity after 5 years. So hence the Nearabut Master Plan, which is an important document for council. We've designed this to a very specific type. Sorry, could you repeat your first question again for me?
How long was the agreement with the City of Joondalup? How long has it been signed for? Thank you.
Again, through the Chair, thank you for the question. It's a 3+1+1. It is realistically a location for the City of Joondalup to bring material to be transported away. We have no other involvement other than we're the facility owner.
Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to one of my favourites on page 9, waste per capita. And would you agree that the 25-26 forecast of 375 kilograms per capita, a decrease of 9 kilograms per person, is a good outcome from the city in decreasing our landfill?
Mr. Gould.
Thank you for the question through the Chair. I think any decrease in waste produced per capita is of benefit to the city that is growing at this exponential rate. I also believe that part of our corporate plan discusses us meeting a target within the next couple of years. I'm pretty sure it's close to that 375. So any decrease in per capita waste generation is probably what is in the best interest of the city and the state and probably the country as a whole.
Any further questions from the committee? None indicated, so I'll go for a mover and seconder for the report. I've got Mayor moving and Councillor Berry seconding. If we could have a show of hands for those in support. That is carried unanimously. Thank you, committee. All right, so item 4.2, and the page number starts on page 11. Is there any questions from the committee before we go to a mover and seconder? Deputy Mayor Miles.
Thank you, Chair. My first question relates to, I guess, just a general question. The FOGO reference group, who is actually the lead agency that looks after that particular group, and who's on it?
Kylie?
Through the chair, so it's organised by DWER, and they involve any industry partners and local governments or state agencies that have any type of applicable issue to raise in the local government sector, such as DPIRD when they talked about short hole borer, but DWER run the sessions, and they invite members of local governments or industry to give presentations, and obviously if they're not applicable to the group they wouldn't go ahead, but otherwise we have a lot of varied content that are presented at those sessions.
Just in addition to that, I think MRC has one seat at the table, as well as State Council, I think for Walga, has a representative as well, which I think is actually from the North Metro Zone, from my recollection at the moment. Deputy Mayor Miles.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess my question is on dot point 1, it says that the strategy for FOGO is going to proceed to Cabinet for a possible mandate commencement date. Can you enlighten us what that means?
Kylie?
Through the chair, so one of the things that they're looking at in the draft strategy was the investigation of a mandate. So it's not something that has been included as something that's definite currently. It's something that the state is looking at and how they would enforce such a mandate if local governments obviously didn't voluntarily progress with FOGO. So it's something that they may implement in the future. It has been discussed at the FOGO reference group how likely that is, but the legal mechanisms, that's why it's an investigative action, is what they're going to look into over the 5-year period, and it's unknown whether they would implement such a mandate within that 5-year period or if it would be after.
Yep, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, just a final one on this one. Did the FOGO group not discuss that trying to, I'm not saying the group's done it, but if somebody's pushing to have some sort of mandate, that obviously conflicts with the other part of the strategy from the state, and that's to have waste to energy. So you can't have both being mandated. So that's why I took interest in the statements in the dot point. So whilst I like the fact you said that how could it be done, was the discussion also, but hang on, we've got local governments doing waste to energy, a $300 to $400 million plants, they've got to be paid off first before we go down some other place. Is that what's been discussed? Would you agree?
Kylie?
Through the chair, yes. So particularly for Rivers Regional Council, this is all from memory, so apologies if I do get slight information incorrect, but obviously through their main investment and contractual arrangements with waste to energy, I understand that that's quite a significant period of time. So whether the state takes that into account, and obviously through any type of mandate, I would assume they would do significant consultation through those things to better understand what a mandate would mean for certain local governments that have those contracts in place. But I think the general gist and the feel that I get from DWER in those FOGO sessions is that ultimately they don't want to have to mandate anything. They want to encourage local governments to obviously move to higher resource recovery by whatever means is going to best suit their community. But if that doesn't progress, they want to have other mechanisms in the toolkit, so to speak, to be able to ensure that there is improvement in resource recovery across the state.
I'll go to Councillor Berry and then the Mayor.
Thank you, Chair. I guess that relates to why why we haven't got the state waste strategy coming forward for a little while, and there's a delay in that then. So my question would be, if FOGO is a possibility, has administration done any investigations into the impacts we'd expect financially, what that would mean for us?
Kylie?
Through the chair, I know that there was a lot of research done when the Go bin was initially implemented. Due to that progressing obviously to Go, and then obviously our switch to our initiatives with the transfer station, obviously that's the primary concern. The discussion that we have with WER currently was that FOGO has kind of not, obviously the council is still deciding, but that was our primary focus, is obviously working with Mindarie Regional Council, working on our transfer station and progressing that future. So the decisions with FOGO, we've obviously pushed back because that was the priority. Did that answer your question? Sorry, sort of. What was the original question, Alda?
Have you done any analysis on what the costs would be?
So because of obviously the focus on those things, that's where our capacity and resources have gone. But we have also taken into account that there's a 2-year planning period for any FOGO program. So that would, after we've sorted out the transfer station in Nirrumbuk, moving to FOGO. And that would all be explained when we finalise our strategic waste plan, hopefully bringing it to Warrack in the first meeting after the state finally releases their state strategy. But we want to outline FOGO for council's consideration, because I know that there obviously has been some concerns, so that everyone understands what type of steps would be in place if council wanted to still progress with FOGO.
Mr. Gort wanted to add a further comment as well.
So I guess to answer your question, Kylie's put that very well. Other than when the Go bin was implemented, which we did some financials back then, we've not done any further progression in relation to finances related to FOGO at this stage. It's still quite a unsure position for everyone just yet. Again, 2-year minimum time it takes to look at anything like that is 2 years, and we'd need to have you guys to have a look at this prior to that 2 years. So there's still some time between now and then. FOGO is a goal of most waste managers, including local government and the state and the federal government. But we'd like to probably spend much more time on it once the industry is probably a bit more mature. My personal concern is the industry is not quite mature enough to do that really, really well. I've seen a lot of good work on the East Coast. The East Coast have actually mandated FOGO and they have seen some good results. We're a little bit behind here, that's all I think. But we'll include council on that journey.
Mayor, over to you.
Thank you. I recall we did an investigation about FOGO, and from what I understood, whilst council in their recommendation did include FOGO, and you can correct me, but I think in the initial recommendation they did include FOGO, could you clarify about any facilities able to take the amount of our food and organic waste from the city of Wanneroo? Was there anywhere big enough at that time to take all of our food and organic waste? I'm pretty certain I know the answer, but I'm asking the question because I know the answer.
Mr. Gould.
Sure, through the chair. At the time, no, but the state and federal government have started investment in relation to developing those sites. Probably one of the more obvious ones would be the Gingin facility. Again, FOGO's been put on the back burner for us as a council. Council being really clear with that. That's okay from our perspective. When you go and instigate into a new service such as FOGO, I think for a large local government like this, best position generally is make sure everything is in place prior to jumping into that. If you jump into something that's a little unprepared or a little undercooked, it's big dollars for a council of this size, right? Maybe some of those smaller councils doing smaller tonnages, yep, no problem, they can absorb some of those things. Just to put it in perspective, like we're doing 100,000 tonnes of waste in general per year. That's quite a lot.
Yes, Mayor.
Just quickly, is the Gingin facility going to be of capacity to take that amount of food and organic waste in the future, and the time frame for that? Do you have any idea?
Mr. Gould.
Thank you through the chair. I'll take that on notice.
One other question. I see on the second last point, the issue that they've been having with FOGO, and we've seen it on the news, is the 2% contamination target. And I think if we're looking, how am I going to make this a question? If we're looking at doing FOGO in the future, I would hope that our team would look very strongly at education to minimise contamination, because if it's contaminated, it's next to useless. Would you agree?
Mr. Gould.
Thank you for the question through the chair. I would agree that high contamination rates in FOGO make it almost a useless product. I have had some experience recently in the past 6 to 8 months where I've seen FOGO binned material immediately landfilled because it is so contaminated. It's one of the reasons why education in relation to project development and project management is so important. Yes, I agree to suggest that that is the case.
Any further questions? Councillor Smith.
Thanks. My first question is the state government's recently announced and implementing, I think, containers for change now taking wine bottles and glass and things like that. So in terms of contamination rates based on other areas, do we have a kind of estimate in terms of how much that might reduce potential contamination rates going forward?
Mr. Gould.
Thank you for the question, and through the chair, the simple answer to that is no, not at this moment. It's a new items that are coming online generally don't seem to be the contamination that we're seeing in FOGO. FOGO mains contamination is generally plastics, plastic bags in particular. People think they're bagging their greens and all their FOGO products. There's also the purchase of non-compliant non-Australian standard FOGO bags, which are still in the market in places that people have. It just makes the things difficult to process. Education around dog faeces as well is one of the other things that gets into FOGO that makes it almost a useless product. Some glass that is actually in there, I'm not sure of where that material is actually coming from, but once it goes through a shredding, mulching and processing facility, it's just fine shards of very sharp pieces of glass. So I don't have the answer for you in relation to whether or not we'd see a downturn in the contamination FOGO. Actually wouldn't think so. The benefit of the CDS system is it's a valuable commodity now. 10 cents for one item is valuable, particularly in these times. So,
Thank you, Mr. Gould. I think Councillor Smith, on page 21 and 22 of the next report, I think from my recollection, there was a massive table, I think, of some of the commonly dumped things in bins, but obviously that's across all 3 bin categories, not just FOGO. I don't know whether that's correct, but did you have any further questions, Councillor Smith?
Thank you, and thank you for that thorough answer. That was helpful. My second question relates to sections about waste guidelines for developments and subdivisions and city waste service delivery models. Both of these indicate that there is investigations or developments currently on hold due to competing organisational priorities and resource allocation. I understand we have competing resources, but for me, for example, for City's waste service delivery model, the section highlights matters of equity and more problems in the future, which is a little bit sad. So I'll just note that one and another one and ask for a little bit of elaboration on or comment on that, and maybe perhaps what type of amount of resourcing would be needed to see that proceed with haste, because it's a matter of equity for that one, I think. And also for waste guidelines for developments and subdivisions, I hate that at this moment we are the bottleneck for other places to proceed with getting on with their work or having to be accountable for tighter guidelines in that sense. So greater elaboration would be great. Thanks.
Kylie?
Through the chair.
So we have had some recent staff turnover. In terms of the guidelines for developments, I've been working really closely with approval services to develop at least a tailored internal document that we can refer to, so all the planners and my team in waste services can refer to. So we have made some progress. It's just finalising that document. I've just got to finish recruitment and getting the right candidate obviously in place. In terms of the service delivery model, unfortunately, due to operational matters that my team are trying to address for working with the operators, we haven't been able to go out and research what properties we're not servicing and how many bins they have, etc. So we had requested an additional resource to be able to undertake that work, but unfortunately from what I understand, we weren't successful in getting that this financial year, but hopefully that will progress in the future.
Councillor Smith.
Thanks. Just a follow-up. So in terms of, I guess that request was at like 1 FTE or less, and then for what you were saying about waste service operational guides or the development and subdivisions, so that doesn't seem to be as on hold for a long term. That's just intermediate. So that's great to hear.
I'll hand over to Mr. Gould.
I guess just to put that into context, it's not a matter of holding up other departments. To be really plain to this group, we sort of started from a position of limited feedback to no feedback. So when you're doing major subdivisions or multi-unit dwellings, whatever, it's really important to have the right plans in place that suit us from an operational and waste management perspective. We probably weren't hitting the right mark on that at the time, which is one of the reasons that in our strategic portion of our business, which Kylie heads as the coordinator, we have a couple of people that we had put on, including a senior waste management officer who is the position that Kylie is currently recruiting for. It's sort of a key position to deal with the rest of the organisation. So instead of, I guess, thinking about it as bottlenecking or holding up, it's more we actually need to have a seat at the table in relation to how we do developments and how that affects waste services specifically. Now, a lot of people will put that to one side and go, oh, it's just waste, we just pick up the bin, right? But when you're talking about multi-use dwellings or bin stands or bin cages, there's a myriad of things that I guess we haven't really fully considered with our feedback related to some of the other service units. We want to provide that. We want to have a seat at the table where we say, hey, look, have you thought about this in relation to waste management? Otherwise, we're operationally going to continue bumping into these problems where there's no bin stands. People are ringing us up going, hey, are we putting this right place? Do we have enough area for these people? It's very easy to maximise lot space to sell. It's very hard to pull that back and go, hey, we need places for waste management. So I guess when we say those things aren't necessary on hold, they're initiating into, hey, we need to develop these because otherwise at the back end of that from an operational perspective, it becomes very tricky to pull back in.
Councillor Smith.
Thanks. Just to get clarification, you were talking about sit at a table. So is that metaphorical table, I guess, having meetings with developers and trying to get them on board with that? Or what does that seat at the table actually mean in that sense?
Kylie.
Through the chair. So in practical circumstances, basically it means that we work closely with the planner and approval services to review the plans, have a waste management plan submitted where required, and basically ensure that there are conditions placed on the development approvals or building approvals as appropriate to make sure that there is appropriate space for bin collection. And it not only improves outcomes operationally for our operators, but it also greatly, increases the customer experience when you have clear requirements laid out when they first move into a property rather than trying to solve problems later on.
Can I just flag as well, because they are valid points, could I ask the Mayor, obviously with your meetings with the CEO, that be flagged from the committee's perspective during those conversations, if that's okay? And we can leave that offline to you with the CEO to workshop that, just so those points are addressed from a council perspective anyway. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I had similar questions to Councillor Smith, but following on from what we've just been told, and I understand it'd be really good to have a seat at the table with our planning department. I'm aware at the moment of a planning that's going through DAP for Jindalee, for Catalina, their apartment blocks. How do we get the seat at the table with the DAP and ensure that the planning around the bins for those type of developments are also equally considered? Because the big 5-storey thing in Mindari that's gone up is not great when it comes to where they all store their different coloured bins for collection. Thank you.
Kylie?
Through the chair. So the building approvals and development approvals are highly driven by the state, and obviously our building, may just be preaching to the choir, but our building and planning team are basically enforcing the state's codes and livable neighbourhood guidelines. So we have a lot of frustrations, the planners and myself and other stakeholders across the city, when the R codes and the livable neighbourhoods aren't able to be appropriately addressed when it comes to specific tailored situations. So unfortunately, when things do go to DAP, it can not go in a positive way for the city and for amenity outcomes, because it does meet the R codes and it does meet livable guidelines, but unfortunately, due to the circumstances, it just ends up a really poor outcome for not only those property owners in the future, but then their neighbours as well. So it just sometimes highly depends on the designer, but we do try and work with developers and architects and all the different stakeholders within that process to point out the positives and alternatives when it comes to their design. Whether they choose to then implement that design advice is obviously up to them. They can fight it and go to DAP. But I would say the majority do listen to the planning team and ourselves, hoping to have the best outcomes for their future residents. But it just depends upon, obviously, the guiding forces behind those developers.
Councillor Seif. Sorry, Councillor Seif.
Thank you. How many dwellings on a block does there need to be for this to start being an issue? Because we've just approved that there doesn't require planning approval or design approval for up to 6. So if there's 6 dwellings now going on a block of land, we've just said that that's okay, that you don't need design approval. So I'm just wondering, this issue of needing alternative waste collection solutions, how many dwellings does this problem start with?
Are you referring to the local planning policy? Yep. Kylie?
Through the chair, it's highly dependent upon the situation. So we can pick it up at subdivision stage. So once it goes to individual lots, if it is under 6, obviously we don't get an opportunity to comment. But through the subdivision, so through any creation of a lot, we should be able to, through the State Planning Commission, give comment if there are specific concerns. So normally what we do is have a look at if there is restricted verge space, which is what it comes down to with verge and bin collection. So normally the planners, if they see that there is restricted verge space, they'll refer it to us and we'll capture it at that stage where possible. But there are times when it does slip through and we have to, at the end, use the city's operational budget to be able to try and come up with a solution.
Councillor Seif.
So of the examples that you've had in the past, what's the lowest number that you've had, number of dwellings, where this has become a curbside issue?
Kylie?
Through the chair, normally it's 3. So the hardest ones are usually when they're in very tight corner blocks, and basically because the back of the block is so large and the frontage is so narrow, like the top of cul-de-sacs, it can be as little as 3 or even 2, depending on where those lots are located. But it's just through the meeting the R codes and the livable neighbourhoods, we just have to find a solution.
Councillor Seif.
Thank you for your answers to my questions. It's very helpful. So in that scenario where it is a block like that, how are we solving that? What is the city having to do? I understand it comes out of operational budget, but I just want to get in my head that what is it we're doing?
Through the chair, so often you might find that bins end up spreading across neighbours' verges. We're still on the council land, so within the road reserve, but on the neighbouring verge. So depending on the situation, it will spread down to the neighbouring properties. Sometimes that isn't appropriate, and we might have to have the crossover reinforced, which the developer would pay for when they're developing the lot, so that the truck could reverse in typically and service the bins from the side of the driveway. That is solutions that we have done, but that means that they incur a significant cost during the development to have obviously a reinforced driveway, because obviously if it's just brick or concrete, having a 20-tonne truck on it would obviously damage the surface. So that's typically what they would have a look at, is how did they reinforce the driveway to allow bin collection there.
Councillor Seek.
Okay, and that also slows down the truck driver as well, so it's a little bit less efficient. But thank you again for your answer. So now that we've identified that there's this, is the city going to put in some kind of a control then, so that when these design approvals come through, that you did mention earlier that the city was looking at that planning approvals would have something to make sure that there's enough room on the verge for all the bins. Are we just looking at that, or what are we actually doing?
Kylie.
Through the chair, so yes, the planners are very good at referring these things through to us. So we started that pretty much as soon as I started in this role, so November a year and a bit ago. So since then, I would say we pick up at least 95% of all of the restricted verge scenarios. There was a certain time where some did slip through whilst we were rolling out that change in process, but I would say the vast majority are picked up and addressed appropriately prior to implementation.
Councillor Seif.
Okay, so if it's 95%, which is great, but it's not 100%. So if it's 95%, that says to me it's not actually part of the business process, that you can't then proceed to. It says to me that you can still proceed to the next step even though that control hasn't been checked. So I'm not sure how to get. Getting involved in operations here, but otherwise it will be a motion on notice that I'll foreshadow.
Mr. Gault's got some comments he'd like to add.
Look, I guess the question was, in my mind, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is like, what are we doing about this? Simply, I guess, the waste guidelines for development subdivisions, which is part of this report, says what we're doing. It also says, hey, it's a process. It takes time to develop these to the right place. It takes time to refine them. As Kylie said, starting in November, time to develop the process, put the process in place, ensure that the people that we're dealing with in the organisation are on board with that process and we don't skip any of those steps along the way. We have some limited control in relation to, we are waste services, we are part of the city. If someone misses something, people are human, they make mistakes, we understand that. I would like to believe we're capturing the vast majority of this, and I have every faith, I guess, that that's actually what's occurring at the minute. Much better to the original of we weren't sure that we were getting the ability to feedback originally. So it's always a process improvement for us, I guess.
Councillor Seif.
Yeah, I really appreciate the city's culture of continuous improvement. That's great. It's just that we've only just increased the number from 2 to 6. So like that's only just happened a month ago. So I'm seeking more assurance that a valid business process checkpoint is there and cannot proceed until it's checked that there's enough space on the verge for the bins, or that the design allows for it somehow. would you be able to get back to us on that, please?
Mr. Gould?
I certainly will.
I'll go to Deputy Mayor first and then Councillor Berry.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions to maybe come back. So my first question is, and I think you highlighted it, the art codes make it very clear that there has to be a waste provision on all singular lots and also multiple lots and commercial. Is that correct?
Kylie?
So in terms of, sorry, through the chair, in terms of waste management plans, currently Waste Services only review the residential lots that include residential properties, so whether they're mixed use or purely residential. All of the commercial only provisions, from my understanding, is all reviewed by Health. Occasionally they will ask us for comment, but Health primarily deals with the commercial properties.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. Yep, understanding that. But obviously my question would be that our planning team, and you highlighted that they are good at their process, bearing in mind they have a small window, Minister's just shortened it by 30 days, to actually process housing and the like from 90 days to 60 days. So these extra gaps that we might think are a great idea can actually prolong somebody's application. So when you receive information from planning, how long do you take to turn that over?
Kylie?
Through the chair, so we do aim for 10 days or less, so 2 weeks. Occasionally that does blow out with operational challenges, but normally we will get back to all of the referrals within the 10-day timeframe.
Deputy Mayor?
And just finally, when we talked about this, the MUDs before, we were talking about obviously multiple dwellings, you know, strata units, maybe 10, 20 units, that maybe they wouldn't need green, yellow and red bins, that they could actually commercialise that. And I think we were looking at doing something similar. I think the manager of services was talking to us about whether we as a council got back into that space or whether we should just leave it to the commercial organisations. Is that really where we need to be heading? Just allow the private sector to continue doing the bulk, whether it be yellow, red or green, and obviously those homes won't then get charged a waste fee.
Mr. Kylie?
Through the chair, so at the moment all residential dwellings are charged the mandatory waste fee. In terms of multi-unit dwellings where there's multiple units, as you suggested. So from my time at City of Perth, I developed the guidelines there. So what I try and do in those circumstances, even though it may not fit the weekly, fortnightly model of our services, I try and implement with the developer the best practice so that they have the most flexible waste services, so that depending on obviously what we develop in the future with the service model, they will be able to achieve either with us or with a commercial operator the most cost-effective service possible. They do, in their waste management plan, outline how many bins they'll require of each service type. And typically I've instructed them in most cases to either put that the city can't service them at the moment, however try and ensure flexibility for them to choose the commercial operator, or the city can service them in the future. So try and create that flexibility within those documentation.
Yep, to finish off.
Just finally, thank you, Chair. I guess my question is to Mr. Galt. So when we get into this space within this part of our organisation, is this discretionary spend?
Mr. Gould?
Sorry, I need some clarification on that. When you mean discretionary spending, are you talking about the development of these guidelines, or are you talking about taking on the business of commercial and industrial waste?
Getting involved in processing planning applications. So we should develop a policy, I have no problem with that. We then pass it over to planning and then that's it. So then if waste are then having to deal with a process, that's planning's job. To me, that looks like discretionary and we shouldn't be doing it.
Mr. Gould.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the clarification. Just to give you an idea, we haven't necessarily been doing this for a number of years prior to my commencement of this organisation. The problems that we've found along the way so far is one of the reasons we're spending quite a lot of time on fixing some of those things. Because of our rapid growth, the last thing you want to do is realistically just leave this up to the planners to complete. It's not that they can't do it, but waste are a service that are the experts in relation to waste management and the future of waste management for a city that is expanding at a rapid rate. Planners look at a myriad of things in relation to planning applications, and if we can provide some sort of guidance or even direct direction in relation to a policy, procedure, guidelines, I think we're in a much better position in relation to how we develop those places into the future. I hope that answers your question.
Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Chair. My question goes to quite a lot of the comments we've had tonight regarding equity, and we've heard that everybody pays rates towards their waste without exception. So how are the people that, everyone's paying the waste services. How are we being equitable to the people, I don't know, that have got rubbish down laneways at the back, the multi-developments? How are they getting bulk waste and getting the same services that everybody can get? How are we progressing our planning to ensure that the collection of waste for everybody is equitable?
And Mr. Gould.
Thank you, through the chair. I've heard the word equitable used quite a bit tonight, and I don't disagree that that would be the ideal world. I guess I put waste services much more in alignment with how we pay for our fire and emergency services. We're taxed related to that. It's operated as a department, and that department provides fire and emergency services for everybody. I pay a higher tax rate than most. I'm not standing here going that we should take away the fire and emergency services or I should get a better service from them because I pay more money. Real equity in relation to this comes back down to everyone pays their share, everyone has accessibility to the same service or a similar service or a portion of that service for the betterment of the city in itself. Not the city as this organisation, but the people who reside here. I know there are people out there that are paying waste service fee. They're putting very little in their bin, but they're still enjoying the parks bins. They're still enjoying dog waste bags. If you want to go down the path of engaging that on a dollar for dollar, how much you actually use a pay system, I have not seen anyone in the industry produce that yet. And we have some very smart people in the industry that would love to get it down to that dollars and cents part. But this is realistically waste services in its history, since I've been working in it, has always been about what is in the betterment of everyone across the city itself. Whether you utilise that service to its maximum or whether you barely utilise that service at all, that's how that fee was structured originally.
Can I just follow up from, I think, what Councillor Berry was referring to? The suggestion one, every household gets charged the waste levy, even if they're getting bulk from Cromlands or Silo or whatever. We know that we had to refund a whole bunch of people because we did not provide the service. Waste is a fee for service. If we don't do the service, we can't charge for it legally. So I think that was the question that Councillor Berry was sort of putting. Do we have multi-dwelling units that are getting bulk from a commercial provider and we're still, I guess, charging the waste levy?
Mr. Gould.
I'd have to look further into that and respond to you specifically to that question.
Thank you. That will be taken on notice. Councillor Berry, any further questions? No? Councillor Seif.
Could the answer to that question be in a briefing note or a report to all of us, please?
Mr. Gould.
Certainly.
Any further questions from the committee? None indicated, so we'll go to a mover and seconder, which is on page 16. Could I grab a mover for the item? Deputy Mayor Miles is moving, and a seconder, Councillor Berry, is seconding. Could we have a show of hands for those in support of the item? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And we now go to item 4.3 on page 17. Questions from the committee. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions. My first relates to the digital waste vouchers that have just come in. Are we confident that everyone in the community is able to use them? And is there additional help for those that may not be able to? And I'm referring mainly to maybe elderly people that are not used to using a mobile phone, a digital platform, or booking their services in that way. Thank you.
Claire?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, so we recognise that 1 in 4 Australians are affected by the digital divide, which means they either don't have access or can't access a digital device to get their digital waste vouchers. So we have our city libraries supporting individuals. We have a front counter supporting individuals that can't, and we have CRC that take phone calls and pass through to our waste service officers that can assist with those. So we print those and post those out to them. So yes.
Councillor Berry?
A follow-up to that, would it be possible to send us all out something that would enable us to maybe share on our own social media how people can access that as an alternative, please?
Absolutely.
Any questions? Councillor Berry?
And my next one really relates to the whole report. A lot of this is obviously discretionary expenditure, and they all sound like great initiatives in their own right. How are we confident that the initiatives that we're paying for are absolutely netting us some results, please? Thank you.
Mr. Gould?
Thank you, through the chair. I guess in relation to project and education, yes, maybe some of it is discretionary, but I'd suggest that it's very rare for any local government to not invest in some sort of waste education in relation to delivering services out there. It's always helpful for people to know what to put in which bin or when we pick things up. I'd also probably take the time to just have a look at some of the main key project that we have at the moment, which is included as part of the education process, is the digitisation service, which is I believe, part of our council plan and one of the KPIs for the CEO. Do I think that we could improve how we do our waste education? Yes. Do I think it's discretionary? No, not in a waste sense.
Mayor?
This is a bit of a rhetoric question, but you know how I mentioned that our waste per capita has been decreasing each year. Would that decrease be happening if we weren't educating our community on how to deal with their waste better? I would like to ask that question through the chair. Thank you.
Would you agree? Mr. Gould?
It would have, I would believe it would have some effect in relation to the reduction in our waste capita. Couldn't give you an exact amount of what that affects.
Kylie?
I just thought something that would be important to add is that in terms of avoidance, obviously being at the top of the waste hierarchy, it has a direct correlation to our operational budget as well. So the avoidance education that goes out there. So, for example, with the cloth nappies, obviously that's resulting in less nappies going into landfill, and that would be an exponential decrease in the amount of, if you think of how, I don't know if anyone's had children recently, mine are 5 and 7, but it would significantly decrease the amount of general waste, and obviously that's the most expensive waste stream to dispose of. So another way to look at waste education is obviously the effect that it has on potentially completely avoiding waste, which is obviously a cost to the city, or it increases the amount of waste coming out of a less desirable waste stream. So whether it goes into garden organics or recycling, which is less expensive to dispose of.
Any... Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Sue.
I noticed that we did the education program on the cloth nappies at the libraries after the story time to target the right audience. How popular was it? How many? Like, was it? What did most parents stay behind, and were they interested? Did they?
Amber.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't have the exact numbers. I can provide that to you. However, it was found that previous workshops using the same method after story time were more popular earlier in the year. So maybe it's just something we need to look at in terms of changing up that that delivery, if there is something else that could work better, but definitely there was a bit of a reduction this time round, and maybe it's just the same crowd and they've already seen it, but I can get those figures for you.
Councillor Seif.
One more question around the cloth nappies. Are we keeping a registration of who collects the cloth nappies through the city's program to make sure that we're not repeatedly giving the same people so that we're sharing it?
Amber.
I'd have to take that on notice. Thanks.
Any further questions from the committee? Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, can I just ask again, Chair, just to go on to the cloth nappies, because I understand, I think that was a grant when we were talking about this last time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we had if that was a grant, we would have to have acquitted it with the detail of how many people showed up and who would likely take on the old-fashioned way of nappies. My first child was, so I've done it. I know what it's like. Second one didn't. But yeah, it'd be nice to know what those figures are, and maybe if the manager could update the report or give us an update. I think it's good information. Just on that one, I'd like to have a bit more detail on that one. My final part of question is, I guess to the manager, what is the total budget that you've got allocated in your budget for education?
Mr. Cool.
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, I'll take that on notice and provide that information back.
Any further questions from the committee? None indicated, so I've got a mover, Mayor Aiken, who would like to move. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Seif is seconding. Could we have a show of hands for those in support of the item? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 5, confidential, we have none. Item 6, late reports, we have none. Item 7, date of the next meeting is scheduled for Monday the 19th of October and to be held in the council chambers. And item 8, closure, close the meeting at 7:24, and thank all the councillors and staff for their attendance tonight. Thank you.